Part 48. I changed my profession and became a concept god, shocking the world with one knife. Author, How Like the Human World. Chapter 471. Inside the Beiwa building. Ning Feiyo chose a private room by the window on the second floor. When he looked up, he could see the stage on the first floor. At this time, a woman wearing a veil was sitting on a wooden chair, gently playing the pipa in her hand. Although half of her face was covered, she could still tell that she was a stunningly beautiful woman. This woman looked to be only 28 years old, with skin as thick as gelatin, a waist as thin as a willow tree, and a pair of jade hands dancing quickly on the pipa, singing an intoxicating tune. All the guests were mesmerized for a while. After the song, countless onlookers burst into warm applause. Countless amounts of money were thrown onto the high stage. The woman stood up and bowed to everyone to thank them. Miss Peach Blossom's pipa is really amazing. No wonder it can conquer the hearts of all the monks in our southern region. It's a pity that Peach Blossom Girl will only stay in our city for 3 days. I don't know when I will see Peach Blossom Girl in the future. Well. Everyone sighed. Boss, can you please invite this Peach Blossom Girl to come to our meeting? Ning Feiyo asked, looking at the old bustard who was twisting her waist and still showing her charm. Hey, young master, you have already ordered 7 or 8 girls, do you want more? The madam looked at the pair of Suren and Ning Feiyo strangely. Ning Feiyo ordered 8 girls by himself, but Suren didn't ask for any of them. She didn't even know how 2 people with such different personalities could become friends. The most important thing is to visit their Beiwa building together. Hee, the more the merrier, the thing I don't dislike the most is more girls. The madam shook her head and apologized, I'm really sorry, master. Tao Hua only shows off her skills but not her body, and she doesn't accompany her with drinks. Oh? Are there people like this in your Beiwa building? Young master, you don't know. Dehua is from the main building. We don't dare to touch her or let her do other things. Ning Feiyo looked at the woman below in surprise when he heard this. I see. Although Beiwa House is a brothel that has opened all over the southern region, the people who come out of the main building are not prostitutes. When they come out to perform, it's just for experience. The madam thought that Ning Feiyo had given up her thoughts and wanted to turn around and leave. But unexpectedly, Ning Feiyo suddenly said. It just so happens that I have something to do with someone from your Beiwa building main building. Boss, why don't you go ask her to come up? Don't worry, I won't accompany you to drink. Ning Feiyo took out a metal flower from the space treasure and handed it to the madam. The madam originally wanted to refuse Ning Feiyo's request, but after seeing the flower, his expression tightened and he bowed. I'm going to call Dehua right now. Young master, please wait a moment. The madam went downstairs and whispered a few words in Dehua's ear. Dehua raised her head and glanced at the private room where Suren and his 2 men were, and nodded slightly. Seeing Tao Hua get up and go upstairs, all the guests looked over curiously. After seeing Dehua enter the private room on the second floor, everyone immediately expressed surprise. Oh my god, how did Miss Peach Blossom get into the private room on the second floor? Isn't Peach Blossom Girl not going to accompany you for drinks? Is there any big shot coming to the private room? Even Peach Blossom Girl has to go. I took a look just now. They are 2 young men. I'm afraid they are not the young masters of some powerful family. In the private room. After the Peach Blossom Girl came in, she first looked at the 2 of them, then looked at the girls accompanying the wine and said. You guys go out first. Yes. The girls naturally knew who Dehua was, and the madam had to listen to her, not to mention them. Hey, don't leave. Ning Feiyo was a little unhappy and said, why don't I ask you something? Why did you send them away? Sorry, according to the rules of Beiwa House, what you discuss with your guests cannot be known to others. After Dehua finished speaking, She looked at Suren. Who is this? You don't have to look at him. I asked this for him. He is also a guest. Dehua nodded, closed the window of the private room with a wave of her hand, and then cast a diaphragm formation. This caused another cry of grief from the curious crowd below. The goddess they cherished so much was called away. Also closed the window. After doing all this, Dehua looked at Ningfeiyu and asked. I wonder what the young master wants to ask. My friend would like to ask, has anyone from King Guiju Palace been walking in the heaven recently? Dehua looked at the two of them, thought for a moment and nodded. Yes, and there are two of them. Where are they? This time it was Suren who asked. The current location is unknown, but in 3 days, the Nanli Sword Sect will invite sword cultivators from all over the world to hold a sword competition at the top of the Sword Mountain. It is said that the two people from Wukingju Palace will be seated to watch. Sword contest. Hearing this, Ningfeiyu was a little excited and said. Are there any prizes in the sword competition? Dehua gave him a strange look, nodded and said. Yes, I will reward you with a supreme sword embryo from the Nanli sword section. It is said that it is well maintained and is as powerful as an immortal treasure. Compared to an immortal treasure? Isn't it very valuable? Ningfeiyu's eyes shone, and he was thinking about how much the sword embryo could be sold for. Dehua was stunned for a moment and nodded. It's okay, I've seen a lot of geniuses, and I like to compete with geniuses. Dehua was almost stunned when she heard this. Suren glanced at him. Have. Hey, that's okay. Moreover, did you take the reward just to sell it for money? Does this young master also want to participate? Young master, for the sake of Fiwaling, I have to remind you that the sword competition is actually a competition specially organized by Nanli Sword Sect to revive its reputation. I heard that Nanli Sword Sect has a natural swordsman. Genius. Dehua nodded. When it comes to feelings, you are not yet a swordsman. I am not interested. The peach blossoms looked a little overwhelmed. Hearing Ningfeiyu talking to himself, Dehua's eyelids twitched. Ah! Can I only practice with a sword? It's a pity that I don't use a sword. But there are still 3 days left, so it's probably too late to practice now. This person has been established as the holy son of Nanli Sword Section. This competition is to make this genius famous. Seeing Ningfeiyu's insistence, Dehua didn't say much, but looked at Suren and said. Nanli Sword Sect is one of the top sects in the southern region. Ningfeiyu waved his hand and said indifferently. Moreover, the sword embryo is a supreme magic weapon, and it has become synonymous with value in this person's eyes. Just crazy. It doesn't matter if you're not a swordsman, but you're still going to compete in the competition after practicing for 3 days. Brother Su, let's participate together. I'll get first place and you get second place. How about we give him a good reward? These two people were obviously asking about Wuwuju Palace, so why did they suddenly care about the sword competition? If it weren't for Fiwaling, she would never have come up to answer their questions. Is there something crazy about these two people? Of course there is. Only swordsmen under the age of 100 are allowed to participate in the sword competition, and the rest are not allowed to participate. Suren shook his head. By the way, Miss Peach Blossom, is there a reward for second place? Miss Peach Blossom, are there any requirements for participating in the sword discussion conference? She didn't even know how this person had a flying flowerling in his hand. They all think that the person who is the Holy Son can only be ranked third in the eyes of these two people. Ningfeiyu really didn't mean to brag when he said this. To be able to become the Holy Son of the immortal palace of 10,000 Daos, the geniuses he had seen were probably not 10,000 but 8,000. Brother Su, why don't you join in? When the time comes, I'll take the sword embryo and we'll sell it and split it equally. I changed my profession and became a concept god, shocking the world with one knife. Author, how like the human world. Chapter 472. Not interested in. Suren shook his head again. He would definitely participate, but not for the competition, but for the sake of the two people in the ruthless Jugong. As long as he catches them, Suren can control them and let them take him into the ruthless palace. Hearing that the two of them were really talking, Dehua was completely speechless. The remarks of these two people are really outrageous. One wants to get first place to get rewards and sell money, and the other one has an expression as if I can definitely get second place but I have no interest in participating. Who are these people? I don't know who from the main building issued the flying flower order to them. Dehua really didn't want to stay here with the two of them anymore, so she asked. Do you two have anything else to ask? Ningfeiyu asked at this time. Miss Peach Blossom, you are also going to watch the game, right? Yes, I will leave for Nanli Sword Sect tomorrow. Ningfeiyu clapped his hands after hearing this. That's great. How about we go together? This. Peach Blossom girl wanted to refuse, but Ningfeiyu raised the flying flower token in her hand. The Peach Blossom girl said helplessly, okay. As an intelligence organization, Beihualu headquarters is most concerned about what is happening in various places and collecting information on some important figures. At the same time, in order to attract customers and sell information, the main building specially distributed some flying flower orders to those important people. When seeing Fiwaling, everyone in Beihualu must answer all questions and respond to requests. Of course, some unreasonable requests can be rejected. But Ningfeiyu's request was not an unreasonable request. Dehua could only agree. Don't you know the names of the two young masters? Ningfeiyu smiled and replied. My name is Ningfeiyu, and this is my friend Suren. Dehua thought for a long time, but there was no information about these two people. If there are no other problems, Dehua will resign. Well, Miss Peach Blossom, please remember to call us tomorrow morning. Good. Dehua stood up and left. After Dehua left, Ningfeiyu shook his head and sighed. It's such a pity that Peach Blossom girl is so beautiful but doesn't sell herself. Suren almost gave him a kick when he heard this. After all, this guy was also the holy son of Wandeo Immortal Palace, so how could he act like a local ruffian? At this time, 8 girls waiting outside came in. Ningfeiyu suddenly smiled with a smile on his face. Come on, let's have a drink each, no one is allowed to run away. Suren sat in the corner, opened the window facing the street and looked out. Suren pretended to be looking at the scenery, but he was thinking in his heart. If you want to catch the two people in Wukingju Palace, you will inevitably take action. As the audience, if they want to catch them, the Nanli Sword Sect will definitely be alarmed. If Nanli Sword Sect intervenes, a fight will definitely be inevitable. Offending Nanli Sword Sect will definitely affect Ningfeiyu. After all, the two of them are together. If Ningfeiyu doesn't want to get involved, it will definitely affect the relationship between the two. Ningfeiyu still needs to get the half of the void mirror. Suren needs to catch people, and Ningfeiyu's relationship here also needs to be maintained. Suren needs to think of a perfect solution. Ningfeiyu had been drinking with several girls until night, and then he walked toward the guest room with 2 of them in his arms. Brother Su, you can do it yourself. See you tomorrow. Master, do you need service? I promise to make you as happy as a god. The remaining girls were a little moved when they saw Suren's handsome appearance. No need, arrange a vacant room for me. When several girls heard this, they were immediately disappointed. They don't dare to violate the words of their guests. Master, follow me. A girl took Suren to the guest room. After being brought to the place, she bowed and left. Wandeo Immortal Palace. Located in the middle of Tianyu. Wandeo Immortal Palace exclusively occupies 10,000 spiritual mountains. According to legend, Each spiritual mountain was moved from other places by the master of Wandeo Immortal Palace with great magic power and joined together to form one mountain. On every spiritual mountain, countless palaces stand on it. In every palace, there are countless monks practicing there. Viewed from a high altitude in the distance, the entire 10,000 Deo Immortal Palace is well proportioned. Surrounded by clouds, mountains, and mist, it looks like a fairy palace outside the sky. Among the mountains, various spiritual beasts and monks shuttled among them, making the 10,000 Deo Immortal Palace look more like a fairyland outside the world. In a certain hall in the mountains, a little boy in grey clothes ran into the hall, looked at the old man meditating in the hall, bowed and said, "Mountain Master, Emperor Sky and Sky is asking for an audience outside the mountain gate." Kong Tian? He doesn't stay in his Kong Tian star domain. What is he doing here? Mountain Master, I see that his body is weak and he has lost his body. He must have encountered a powerful enemy. He must have come here to ask for help. As much as you know, bring him in. After hearing this, the boy in grey clothes immediately ran outside. Outside the mountain gate, the body of Emperor Kong Tian was so elusive that it was about to disappear. If he can't get a body suitable for him, his soul will be gone. If he just wants to meet the master of Wandeo Immortal Palace, he needs to be introduced by the master of Wuliang Mountain. There are 10,000 mountain masters in Wandeo Immortal Palace, and only the mountain master of Wuliang Mountain can see the master of Wandeo Immortal Palace. No one else can. At this time, the boy in grey clothes jumped down the stone steps. When he was almost in front of Emperor Kong Tian, the boy said, "Come with me, the mountain master has promised to see you." "Thank you." After the Sky Emperor thanked him, he followed the boy in grey and walked up the mountain. The boy in grey clothes led the Sky Emperor up the stairs, passed through the palaces on the mountainside, and finally arrived outside the palace at the top of the mountain. "Go in by yourself, the mountain master is waiting for you." Emperor Kong Tian thanked him again, and then walked inside. As soon as Emperor Kong Tian entered the hall, a voice sounded inside that made people want to kneel down and surrender. "Kong Tian, long time no see. Looking at you, you have already broken through to the upper ninth realm. Why are you still in such a mess?" Kong Tian looked at the old man in front of him, bowed and said, "Kong Tian has met Lord Mo Shan. Mo Dao, the number one person under the palace master of 10,000 Dao Immortal Palace, has unfathomable strength. He is also the owner of Wuliang Mountain. The sky and sky skills are inferior to those of humans, and I was defeated at the hands of others. I came here to ask the palace master to give me a physical body so that I can take revenge." "Who hurt you?" "The man's name is Suren, and the Dragon Emperor is also his accomplice." "Where is the Earth Emperor's book?" the old man asked again. Emperor Kong Tian said with some guilt. The Earth Emperor's book was also taken away by him. You are no match for him even if you have the Emperor's Book of Earth. How can you defeat him if I am given a physical body?" The old man said slowly as if he had read through his mind. "You came here to beg for a body, but your real purpose is to beg the palace master to send someone to help you kill him. Am I right?" When Emperor Kong Tian heard this, he immediately knelt down. "Master Mo, I'm just unwilling. I definitely have no intention of deceiving Master Mo. Okay, get up. I can take charge of physical matters and find you a new one. But these are troubled times, and we can't send people to help you kill Na Surin. The people of the Wushuan Alliance have been silent for thousands of years, and now they are ready to make a move." When Emperor Kong Tian heard this, he did not show any dissatisfaction, but quickly replied, "Master Mo Shan, we have also found traces of the Wushuan Alliance in the Sky Star territory. That Suren has an inexplicable relationship with the Wushuan Alliance." "All right." The old man glanced at him. "You go down and rest first." "Yes." Emperor Kongtian bowed his head and resigned. The old man looked at him again, shook his head and continued to meditate with his eyes closed. He only believed half of what Emperor Kongtian said. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I changed my profession and became a concept god, shocking the world with one knife. Author, How Like the Human World. Chapter 473. Early on the next morning, Suren and the two of them walked out of the city with the Peach Blossom Girls team. There were two more men in a group of women, and since this was a team of Peach Blossom Girls, it naturally attracted countless passers-by to watch. Ignoring these people, after everyone left the city, Dehua took out a small boat. The boat swelled in the wind and turned into a flower boat with its bow covered with flowers. You two gentlemen, please. After everyone got on the flower boat turned into a stream of light and sailed towards the horizon. Miss Peach Blossom, I forgot to ask yesterday, who is participating in the sword competition this time? Ningfei was sitting beside the flower boat, half lying there with his legs crossed, looking very comfortable. Seeing him like this, Dehua frowned slightly and said, any sword cultivator who meets the conditions can participate. However, the main invitations are the geniuses of Qingyun Sword Sect, Yongxiao Sword Sect and other major sections. Isn't there an invitation from the Tongtian Sword Mountain of 10,000 Dao Immortal Palace? Dehua shook her head. Wandao Immortal Palace is busy with things right now, so I don't have time to come. Oh? May I ask what it is? When Suren heard the words, he also listened attentively. It's not a big deal. You must have just returned from the outside world, right? Basically everyone in the entire heaven realm knows about this. The Wushuan Alliance, which once dominated the heavenly realm, has made a comeback and has already fought against the 10,000 Dao's Immortal Palace once. However, we at Beihualu don't know the specific casualties on both sides. Upon hearing this, Ningfei frowned slightly and then quickly relaxed. If Suren hadn't glanced at him intentionally, he would never have discovered this detail. Peach Blossom Girl, who do you think has a better chance of winning? Of course it's 10,000 Dao Immortal Palace. It could win back then and it can win now. Ningfei nodded and looked at Suren again. Brother Su, what do you think? I don't know, who wins or loses has nothing to do with me. Ha ha ha, Brother Su is alive and well. I'm afraid he doesn't only have eyes for your beloved. Suren didn't accept his words. Ningfei was bored for a moment, so he looked at Miss Peach Blossom and asked whether the Nanli Sword Sect had established a saint, whether the saint was good looking, and how many female cultivators there were in the Nanli Sword Sect. Dehua felt a headache from his questions. This person is either asking for money or asking for women, he is like a gangster. If it weren't for Fiwaling, she would have kicked Ningfei out long ago. After a day of traveling, the group finally arrived at the small town at the foot of Nanli Jianzone Mountain. The Peach Blossom Girl said to the two of them. The gate of Nanli Jianzone Mountain is not open now. Let's stay in this town first and then go up the mountain in 2 days. There is no Beihualu stationed in this town, so a few people can only choose to stay at the inn in the city. As the sword discussion conference was about to be held, the small town, which was originally sparsely populated, became lively. Suren and his party came relatively early and got a few upper rooms. The money paid by the Peach Girl. It wasn't until he saw Ningfei's peaceful eyes that Suren knew why Ningfei had to go with the Peach Blossom Girl. Because this way he can eat and drink with the people in Beihualu without spending any money. Oops, I forgot. Ningfei suddenly slapped his thigh and said, I don't have a sword yet. Brother Su, do you want to accompany me to the town to buy a sword? Not going. Suren walked straight to his room. Peach Blossom Girl. Dehua rolled her eyes at him and walked upstairs. If you don't want to go with me, I won't go with you. I'll buy it myself. Ning Feiyu muttered and walked outside the inn. Nothing happened all night. Early the next morning, a big event happened in the town, and almost everyone in the town knew about it. A young man died on the street. His body was pale and his eyes were wide open, as if he had been greatly frightened before his death. If it were just ordinary people, everyone would know that this matter would not cause trouble. But this person's identity is unusual. The Holy Son of the Yungziao Sword Section. Dehua, Suran, and Ning Feiyu stood in the crowd and looked at the corpse lying on the ground. At this time, the people watching around were also talking. The Yungziao Sword Sect hasn't come yet, why did their Holy Son come first? What comes is still a corpse. Who is so bold that he dares to kill the Holy Son of Yungziao Sword Sect? Does he not want to live anymore? I heard that the Wushuan Alliance has become active again recently. Could it be them? The Wushuan Alliance doesn't have any grudges against the Yungziao Sword Sect, right? It does have some grudges against the Nanli Sword Section. Could it be that they want to frame it? I don't think so. The Holy Son of Yungziao Sword Sect has no sword wounds on his body, and there are no other wounds on his body. He looks more like he was frightened to death. How is this possible? The Holy Son of Yungziao Sword Sect is close to the upper 8 realms in strength, right? What can scare him to death? Otherwise, the relationship between the two sects may be completely at loggerheads. Ning Feiyu looked at the Nanli Sword Sect and his party who were leaving, and asked the Peach Blossom girl next to him. Zhang Kui looked at the body of the Holy Son of Yungziao Sword Sect again, and then ordered his disciples. Bring his body back to the section. Miss Peach Blossom, with your knowledge in Beiwa Tower, you should know how this person died, right? Even if it has nothing to do with them, they still have to give people an explanation. When was the body discovered? Who discovered it? You must all be heroes who have come to participate in our Nanli Sword Sect's sword competition. If anyone has any news about the murder of the Saint Son of Yungziao Sword Sect, you can come to me. If the news is true, our Nanli Sword Sect must have great reward. After Zhang Kui inspected the body, he looked at the crowd around him and asked. Returning to the elder, the disciple discovered it just before dawn. A thin-looking man stood up and said. After listening to this, Zhang Kui asked again, have you found anyone suspicious? After Zhang Kui finished speaking, he looked at the outer disciple and said. The Holy Son of Yungziao Sword Sect died on their territory of Nanli Sword Sect. Yes, elder. You come back to the sect with me. Also, tomorrow is the start day of our Nanli Sword Sect sword competition. Please do not move around randomly during this period to avoid accidents. We will send people to strengthen patrols around this town to ensure your safety. The man recalled, the disciple originally wanted to go to the lake outside the town to practice his sword for a while. As soon as he walked out of the door, he heard a scream. The saint sons of the Yungziao Sword Sect have all died here, and no one has discovered it yet, which makes everyone a little panicked. It's nothing for ordinary people to die here. Their Nanli Sword Sect is strong enough and there is no need to give any explanation at all. No one dares to do anything to them. Zhang Kui took a look at the clothes he was wearing. He was an outer disciple of our sect who stayed in the town. After doing all this, Zhang Kui looked at the crowd and said. When Zhang Kui led the people away, everyone also discussed and dispersed. Everyone looked at the corpse and kept guessing, when a cold shout came. Tell me everything you know. A black-faced man came over with a group of people. Zhang Kui couldn't help but frown. But the person who died now was not an ordinary person, but a future heir to a large sect with similar power to them, the sect's Holy Son. When everyone saw Zhang Kui, they quickly opened a passage to let them in. After Zhang Kui walked in with the disciples of the law enforcement hall, he squatted next to the body and inspected it carefully, and found that it was really the Holy Son of the Yungziao Sword Sect. It's the black-faced ghost Zhang Kui, the elder of the Nanli Sword Sect Law Enforcement Hall. The disciple looked for the sound and found him lying here. When I found him, he was already dead. Step aside. The man shook his head. I changed my profession and became a concept god, shocking the world with one knife. Author, How Like the Human World. Chapter 474. The Peach Blossom Girl nodded slightly. There are no wounds on the body, and the eyes are round and protruding. Although the body was not opened for examination, I guess the liver and gallbladder must have been torn, and the spiritual sea was broken. Are you really scared to death? Ningfei asked with interest. The peach girl shook her head this time. In my opinion, he was not frightened to death, but his soul was sucked alive. As soon as these words came out, even Ningfei stopped joking and became serious. Soul draining. It seems that they can only take away the soul of a person who has reached the peak of the seventh realm alive. Peach Blossom Girl looked at Ningfei in surprise when she heard this. This man looks unremarkable, but his knowledge is extraordinary. It took her a long time to think about who did it. Looking at Ningfei, she figured it out with just a few clicks. I just don't know if this is a coincidence or intentional. Ningfei thought for a while, and then returned to his cheerful self. Forget it, it's none of my business, let them play by themselves. After Ningfei finished speaking, he suddenly thought that Suren had been silent at the side, so he asked. Brother Su, do you want to know who did this? In no mood. Hey, stop pretending, Brother Su, you must be interested, otherwise what were you thinking just now? Suren rolled his eyes at him and said calmly. I was wondering if I should arrest those two people when I see Wu Wuju Palace tomorrow. Hearing this, Ningfei's legs went weak and he almost knelt on the ground. Brother Su, are you serious? Those are the Wu Wuju Gong walking in the sky. If you dare to catch them, are you not afraid of being chased by Wu Qiju Gong? Moreover, that's the Nanli Sword section. There are so many masters in the Nanli Sword section. If you dare to attack, you will definitely be cut into 18 pieces by their 10,000 swords. What, are you scared? Suren tilted his head and looked at him. Ningfei twitched the corner of his mouth and pretended to be calm. I'm just kidding. I, Ningfei, am not afraid of earth or earth. Would I be afraid of Wukingju Palace? Would I be afraid of Nanli Sword Sect? Suren heard this and patted his shoulder. Good brother, I saw you right. Ningfei suddenly wanted to give himself two big mouths. Brother Su, tomorrow, how about we go to Nanli Sword Sect separately? Let's stay as far away as possible to make things easier. Haha, brother Ning, you still say you're not afraid. Ningfei argued. Where, how can there be? Aren't I afraid that you will fail? Then I can still find a chance to save you. Suren just smiled and said nothing. The Peach Blossom Girl standing aside had her little mouth under the veil wide open at this time, and her whole body was stunned. What did she hear? These two people are actually discussing in broad daylight how to arrest the ruthless Zhugong person at tomorrow's sword discussion conference. She had already felt crazy when she heard that Ningfei, a person who didn't use a sword, was going to take first place. I didn't expect there was someone crazier than him. Who are these two people? She was now wondering whether to stay away from both of them now. Otherwise, it will be really hard to tell whether they will form a group by then. If this thing is really going to happen, even Beihualu will not be able to withstand the wrath of the ruthless Zhugong. Peach Blossom Girl, why don't you leave? Ningfei turned back to look at the Peach Blossom Girl who was standing still. Haha, you're not afraid anymore, are you? Actually, Brother Su was joking. How could he dare to do that? Really, Brother Su? Suren said nothing. Ningfei. Damn, you can't be serious, can you? Brother, you are my eldest brother. Even if you let me go with you to steal the treasure pavilion of Nanli Sword Sect, I won't be afraid. But isn't it too bold to arrest someone who is so ruthless in front of so many people? Seeing that Suren still didn't speak, Ningfei couldn't help but take a step back and said, "If you really want to take action, how about we go quietly and find a place where no one is around to catch them? Let's talk about it then. I'm going back to the inn first." Suren walked away, leaving only the two of them messy in the wind. Peach Blossom Girl. Ningfei looked at her. "This young master, this is my first time out of the main building for training, so please let me go. What you're doing, will kill me." Dehua now had a pleading tone. These two people were so audacious, and her little heart couldn't stand such a torment. "Oh, forget it, I won't embarrass you. If you give me hundreds of thousands of spiritual stones and flowers now, Brother Su and I promise to pretend we don't know you tomorrow." Dehua's face darkened when she heard this, as if she suddenly understood something. "Oh, I finally understand why you are so bold. So you were waiting for me here. Are all the people who come out of Beihualu to practice now so courageous?" While everyone was waiting anxiously, an old man dressed in black came from the mountain with many disciples wielding swords. This time, the Nanli Sword Sect seems not only to be famous for its disciples, but also to be famous for the great elder of the section. "Well, let's go up the mountain too." The great elder of Nanli Sword Sect raised his hands to everyone and said with a smile. In addition to sword cultivators, there were also some inheritors or elders from major forces in the southern region who came to watch the battle. The great elder of the Nanli Sword Sect flew to the mountain gate, stopped, and landed on the steps. The disciples behind him stood in 2 rows each. "Is the ruthless person here? Today is the day when the Nanli Sword Sect's sword discussion conference is held." Everyone looked at the old man at the head in surprise, with indescribable envy in their eyes. Looking up the mountain from the square, the first thing you see is the mountain gate of Nanli Jianzong. "Humph, you're still pretending to be with me, do you really think I'm easy to deceive?" Suren and the other 3 walked behind. Suren looked at Peach Blossom Girl and asked. "It is said that it has broken through to the middle of the 9 realms. You're trying to cheat me out of this show? I almost believed you. Peach Blossom Girl, looks like I've seen through your tricks. It's the great elder of Nanli Sword Sect. Next to the mountain gate, a stone sword hundreds of meters high stands here, looking majestic. Welcome to our Nanli Sword Sect to participate in the sword discussion conference. Everyone, please come up the mountain with me. After the big incident yesterday, nothing else happened last night. Thank you very much." Climbing up the stairs behind the mountain gate, 5 peaks towering into the clouds like sharp swords are half hidden in the sea of clouds. Dehua glanced at Suren and thought to herself that she is still acting with me. "You continue to act while I watch quietly from the side." After the Peach Blossom Girl finished speaking, she strode towards the inn. On the plaque on the mountain gate, the 4 characters of Nanli Sword Sect are like sharp swords, and every stroke and every painting has the meaning of the sword. "Not yet. When they come, I will remind Mr. Su. Today's Nanli Sword Sect is very lively, and the entire square outside the mountain gate is already full of people." Ningfei touched his head in confusion, looking confused. After hearing this, everyone followed the great elder of Nanli Sword Sect and walked up the mountain. "I'm going to act like I'm familiar with you tomorrow. I'll see if you can continue to pretend tomorrow." Suren didn't know them and could only ask Peach Blossom Girl. Suren and his party were also crowded in the crowd at this time. Sword cultivators from all sides heard the news and had already been waiting at the gate of Nanli Jianzone Mountain. Ningfei was confused when he heard this. What kind of drama did I perform? Why didn't I know? I changed my profession and became a concept god, shocking the world with one knife. Author, How Like the Human World. Chapter 475. Everyone followed the great elder of Nanli sword sect all the way to the sword discussion platform on the main peak. Tables and chairs have been arranged around the sword discussion platform. Of course, not everyone can sit on it. The people who come this time are divided into contestants and spectators. Among the spectators, those who can sit at the tables and chairs closest to the sword forum are all powerful men in the Southern Territory, either the sect master or the Holy Land Holy Master. In the second row from the back are the elders of the sect, the strongest casual cultivators in the southern region. The third row is composed of junior representatives of a major force. As for the others, they basically had to stand back and watch the game. Suren sat in the third row with Miss Peach Blossom. As for Ningfiu, he ran to register for the competition. Miss Peach Blossom was a little surprised to see Ningfiu actually sign up. But now she didn't believe Suren at all, so she didn't ask or say anything. After the two of them took their seats, two young men also came and sat next to them. Peach Blossom Fairy, I didn't expect to meet you here. I have admired you for a long time. I have listened to every song of yours over and over again. After the two people saw the Peach Blossom girl, they were very surprised. Dehua turned her head and glanced at the two of them, but said nothing. Upon seeing this, the young man hurriedly introduced himself. Peach Blossom Fairy, I am the holy son of Kanyu sect, and this person next to me is my junior brother. After saying that, he didn't forget to show a smile that he thought was charming. Dehua just nodded slightly, with no intention of talking to him at all. The holy son of Kanyu sect was embarrassed and a little embarrassed. He couldn't help but look at Suren next to Dehua. He saw that Suren was unfamiliar and he was not very old, so he wanted to find some face from Suren. Don't you know the name of this fellow Taoist? Suren didn't even look at him, he just stared at the two vacant seats in the first row. Those two positions are reserved for the two people who walk in the world of Wuqingju Palace. Every year, Qingqingju Palace sends some people to walk around the world to refine their hearts. These people are said to walk the world without mercy. No matter what sect they belong to in the heavenly realm, they must receive these human beings with the highest etiquette. The Wuqingju Palace is so powerful that no one except the Wandao Immortal Palace dares not to give them face. The Nanli Sword sect also heard that the two were walking in the Southern Territory, so they specially ordered people to invite them. It's an honor that they agreed to come and watch the game. The holy son of Kanyu sect was frustrated again and couldn't help but feel a little angry. He, the majestic saint son of Kanyu sect, was actually ignored. Although Kanyu sect is not a top sect, it is not a small sect either. Suren's behavior made him extremely unhappy. If this was not the Nanli sword sect, he would have taught Suren a lesson. Humph, wait for me. I can't offend the Peach Blossom Fairy, but I can't do anything to you. At this time, the registration for the contestants participating in the sword discussion conference has been completed. The Nanli sword sect was divided into two groups based on their realm. The group with the highest level will compete last, and 10 people from the remaining group will be selected to advance to the group with the highest level. The competition is randomly drawn and takes the form of heads up on the stage. If you lose, you will be eliminated. At this time, Ningfiu was mixed with the group of people with lower strength. Seeing Suren and the other two, he couldn't help but compare happily. Suren really couldn't understand that he, a holy son of the 10,000 Dao Immortal Palace, would just participate in this competition. Damn, you are still in a group with low strength. Are you embarrassed? And he looked very happy. Mr. Su, do you think Mr. Ning can win from their group? Dehua turned her head and asked Suren. Him? Yes. Suren didn't care at all whether Ningfiu could advance. Even if he didn't know swordsmanship, he could easily crush these people with his own strength. The conversation between the two made the holy son of Kanyu sect gnash his teeth in hatred. The Peach Blossom Fairy, whom he had admired for a long time, actually took the initiative to talk to that boy. And the boy looked a little impatient. Fuck. Don't let me catch you at the bottom of the mountain. Holy Son Kanyu howled angrily in his heart. At this time, the great elder of Nanli Sword Sect walked onto the sword discussion stage, looked at the crowd and said, "Thank you all for coming to our Nanli Sword Sect to participate in this sword discussion conference. The sect master is still in seclusion and cannot come out for the time being. I hope you will understand. You all already know the rules of this sword discussion conference, so I won't go into details. Next, please invite the contestants who drew numbers 1 and 2 to come on stage. In fact, no one is interested in watching the matches of this lower strength group. Everyone knows these people are just here to make up the numbers. Even if you barely make it to the stronger group, it's just a stepping stone for others." The competition started soon. 2 monks holding long swords each stood on one side of the sword discussion platform. After saluting each other, the competition began. Because it is a sword fight, the intensity of this competition is more exciting than other competitions. What swordsmanship pays attention to is a sharp and extreme offensive. There are basically no defensive moves on either side. Every move is an ultimate attack. On the sword discussion stage, sword lights were radiating, and soon one person was defeated. The second group came on stage, and Ningfi Yu happened to be among them. However, as Ningfi Yu came on stage, there were discussions and even jeers in the audience. "Ha ha ha, what's going on with this guy? Are you sure he's a sword cultivator? His sword couldn't have been purchased from a mortal, right? It has no spirituality at all. Ha ha ha, forget it if you don't have spirituality, and you haven't even started yet. I'm laughing so hard." Holy Son Kanyu even laughed loudly. He had long seen that Ningfi Yu and Suren knew each other. "That's why I laughed so loudly on purpose." Even Ningfi Yu on the stage heard his ridicule. Ningfi Yu glanced at Holy Son Kanyu fiercely. When Suren saw this scene, he couldn't help but shake his head. This Holy Son of Kanyu dared to laugh at Ningfi Yu. He would know the consequences of being targeted by Ningfi Yu later. Ningfi Yu's opponent was also speechless at this time. "Fellow Taoist, do you really plan to fight me with this sword? What's wrong? Isn't it possible? I think it's pretty good. I don't like killing, so I use this unopened sword of kindness to fight you. Is it reasonable? In that case, fellow Taoist, please. Hee, be careful then." When Ningfi Yu finished speaking, the edgeless sword in his hand had already been slashed out. That's right, his sword is not for stabbing, but for cutting. Everyone in the audience was speechless. How come anyone dares to call themselves a swordsman in this day and age? As soon as everyone looked at Ningfi Yu, they knew that he didn't know how to use a sword. The key was that he still had the face to stand on stage. At this time, Holy Son Kanyu laughed even louder. But the next second, Saint Son Kanyu's laughter stopped abruptly. The man who was fighting against Ningfi Yu was knocked away without even catching a single move. This scene immediately shocked everyone in the audience. Although this kid doesn't know how to use a sword, his cultivation level is definitely not low. At least his power is amazing. A holy landlord commented. A heavy sword has no edge, and great skill has no workmanship. Another sect leader nodded. He can use an ordinary sword to exert such power without breaking, and his use of power is also extremely good. With just one strike of his sword, Ningfi Yu made everyone cancel their bad opinions about him. Suren just glanced at the sword discussion platform and stopped looking. Instead, he looked at the 2 vacant seats in the first row. The game has started, why doesn't this ruthless person come? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I changed my profession and became a concept god, shocking the world with one knife. Author, how like the human world. Chapter 476. In the next game, the low-strength group was basically nothing to watch. In other words, Ning Fiu's appearance will attract special attention. Although Ning Fiu performed well, no one thought that he, a non-swordsman, could make a name for himself in a group with high strength. On the sword discussion stage, you can only use swords and compete with swords. After all, Ning Fiu's technique of pressing people hard is not as good as a real swordsman. Not surprisingly, after the low-strength group ended the game, Ning Fiu was among the 10 people who advanced. He was the only one who easily defeated his opponent, while everyone else was more or less injured. At this time, Saint Sun Canyu's voice became much softer. He could see that Ning Fiu was definitely not weaker than him. It's just that he is clumsy in using the sword. The people from Nanli Sword Sect let the 10 people who had just been promoted rest for a while before starting the second round of drawing lots. I don't know if they did it on purpose or just luck. The Holy Son of Nanli Sword Sect has drawn the number 1 lottery, which means that he will be the first to appear. When other people present saw this situation, they all tacitly said nothing. From this look, it seems that Nanli Sword Sect is up to something. It seems that they can't wait for their Holy Son to perform. The competition began soon. This time, a protective barrier was placed around the sword discussion platform by the elder of Nanli Sword Sect to prevent those competing above from injuring those watching. The Holy Son of the Nanli Sword Sect was born with a sword heart. He was hidden by the Nanli Sword Sect for decades before he was revealed to the world. It must be extremely powerful. The Peach Blossom girl murmured to herself. Is the natural sword Shin very powerful? Suren suddenly asked. Seeing Suren taking the initiative to ask questions, Dehua explained in surprise. He was born with a sword heart and a clear sword heart. He was born for the sword. He is like a fish in water when practicing the sword technique. Practice to the end, turn your body into a sword, and all swords will obey his orders. Hearing this, Suren thought of the sword god Li Shaobai. Could it be that he was actually born with swordsmen? Under the suppression of the Sky and Sky Empire, the sword god was able to kill Blue Star by himself without borrowing the power of others. It even caused heavy damage to the Air and Sky Empire. It's a pity that the sword god was born in the wrong place, otherwise his achievements would definitely be more than that. At this time, the Holy Son of Nanli Sword Sect walked onto the ring holding a 3-foot-long sword. And his opponent is a young swordsman. After seeing that his opponent was the Holy Son of Nanli Sword Sect, the young swordsman was obviously panicked, and the hand holding the sword was trembling. The Holy Son of Nanli Sword Sect couldn't help but frown when he saw this. You should just admit defeat. You are so scared before you take action. You don't deserve to be called a swordsman. Although the young swordsman was scared, he still shook his head. It is not shameful to lose to the Nanli Sword Sect's Holy Son who has a natural sword heart, but it is really shameful to retreat without fighting. Please. The young swordsman bowed and tried to control the fear in his heart. The Holy Son of Nanli Sword Sect didn't say much, and after returning the gift, he said calmly. I'll give you the chance to strike first. When the young swordsman heard this, he unsheathed his long sword and then thrust it out. The Holy Son of Nanli Sword Sect did not even draw his sword, but opened his eyes and immediately waved his sword on the sword discussion platform. The swords in the hands of everyone in the audience made clanging sounds together. The meaning of the sword is invisible, the sword is hidden in the heart. I didn't expect that the Holy Son of Lingzone would be so powerful. It seems that there is no need to compete today. The holy masters of all major sects in the audience expressed their admiration. When Dehua saw this scene, she couldn't help but exclaimed. As expected of a man with a natural swordsmanship, and having hid the sword for decades, I'm afraid no one can force him to use the sword today. At this time, the powerful sword intention on the sword discussion stage seemed to have formed a substance. The young swordsman felt that his whole body was enveloped by the sword intention and he did not dare to move. If he takes one more step, the sword intent that fills the sky will pierce his body. I lost. The young swordsman took the initiative to admit defeat and jumped off the stage. The holy son of Nanli sword sect just nodded slightly and got off the sword discussion stage. Did you just say that no one can force him to use his sword? Suren looked at Peach Blossom Girl and said. At least in my opinion, none of the contestants in the audience are his rivals. Master Su, don't you agree with my opinion? Suren pointed at the bored Ning Fiyu in the crowd and said. Peach Blossom Girl can't trust Brother Ning so much. I think Brother Ning can not only force him to use the sword, but also defeat him. Before Dahua could speak, Holy Son Kanyu spoke first. Ha ha ha, this is so funny. Can you understand the gap between the two sides? You dare to talk nonsense here when you don't understand anything. It really makes people laugh. At this time, many powerful people sitting in front also looked back at Suren. Seeing that Suren was so old, he also smiled. We're just fighting, and you're setting fire to it. Among the next people who came on stage, there were also several swordsmen who showed their extraordinary side, which attracted cheers and praises from everyone. No one who understands the art of swordsmanship would say such ignorant words. Peach Blossom, right? Since when did your Behawalu have such a friend who doesn't know the heights of heaven and earth? In the end, they still used this method of fighting, which was a shame to their sword cultivators. With Suren's words just now, everyone now wants to see someone like Suren who doesn't understand kendo and dares to talk nonsense get slapped in the face. But Suren was Ning Fiyu's friend, so she had to help. She could only smile awkwardly and explain in a low voice. Finally, it was Ning Fiyu's turn to take the stage. Dahua felt a little embarrassed when she heard the sneers around her. Everyone thought that Ning Fiyu would know how to use a sword after fighting for a few times. However, I have never seen anyone like the holy son of Nanli sword sect. He originally thought that Ning Fiyu would be able to avoid the burning fire dragon, but the next moment, he was stunned. No wonder these two are friends, they just have the same chemistry. It turns out to be the holy son of Lion sect. I told you not to play with fire, but you didn't listen. One is talking nonsense, the other is extremely arrogant, it's absolutely amazing. Those people just smiled and said nothing more. When the holy son of Lion sect saw Ning Fiyu charging towards him, he directly used his sword to control the fire. A fire dragon formed and flew towards Ning Fiyu with a roar. Finally, it's my turn again. Who's not afraid of death? Come on stage and fight me. It's like talking to someone who doesn't understand kendo. It is said that the power of the sword becomes more powerful as it cuts. When it reaches the 9th level, it can burn all living things. Today I have a chance to see if it is as powerful as the legend. The holy son of Lion sect took a stance and pulled out the fiery red sword with a clang. Listening to Ning Fiyu's arrogant tone, everyone finally understood. After all, Behawalu is famous for information collection. If they can't see the basic trend clearly, they are ruining their own brand. The name Sword Cultivator's shame has been placed on Ning Fiyu's head. Ning Fiyu slashed away the fire dragon with one sword, and then the whole person appeared in front of him. As soon as Ning Fiyu finished speaking, a red-haired young man jumped onto the sword discussion stage. In the end, he actually developed a unique sword technique, the Sky Fire Divine Sword. The game continues. The temperature of the entire sword discussion platform soared instantly, and the air was distorted by the heat. Mr. Su is just cheering for his friend, he can't be serious. Ning Fiyu stepped onto the sword discussion stage with excitement on his face. Ning Fiyu picked up his sword and slashed at it. While everyone was still discussing, the game between the two had already begun. The holy son of the Lion sect can be regarded as a unique person in the Southern Territory. He does not learn the fiery fire divine art of the Lion sect, but insists on practicing swordsmanship. I changed my profession and became a concept god, shocking the world with one knife. Author, How Like the Human World. Chapter 477. U. The Holy Son of Lion Sect was startled, and just as he was about to take action, Ningfei's sword had already struck him. Boom! The sharp sword slashed into the chest of the Holy Son of Lion Sect. The powerful force burst out of the sword and directly knocked the Holy Son of Lion Sect off the ring. Although the sword was not fatal, it was already won. Chen Zheng, I was lucky enough to win another game, he. Ningfei stepped off the sword discussion platform with his fists in his hands and a cheerful look on his face. Now the people who had been laughing at him and Su Ren all shut up. In the group with low strength, it can be said that he has not encountered a strong opponent. But the Holy Son of Lion Sect is no simple swordsman. This is someone who can compete for the top 5. But even such a character was knocked off the stage after just one move. It would have been justified if Ningfei succeeded in the sneak attack, but he defeated the Holy Son of Lion Sect head-on and then knocked him off the ring. There is no way to talk about luck or anything like that. TCH, what are you so proud of? Beating against the Holy Son of the Lion Sect does not mean that you can defeat the Holy Son of the Nanli Sword section. Holy Son Kanyu looked unhappy. The stronger Ningfei becomes, the more unhappy he becomes. The Peach Blossom girl looked at Ningfei who was walking down the sword discussion platform with some surprise, and then looked at Su Ren who was calm and unfazed. Now she actually had the illusion that Ningfei could really win the first place. If Ningfei, a non-sword cultivator, could defeat the Holy Son of Nanli Sword Sect with a sword, wouldn't it prove that his real strength is stronger? And Su Ren, who is a good friend with him, is definitely not any worse in strength. De Hua suddenly thought of what the two people said yesterday. One wants to be the best in swordsmanship, and the other wants to catch the ruthless Jew palace walking in the world. They can't be serious, right? De Hua suddenly turned her head to look at Su Ren, just in time to see Su Ren staring at the position left by the Nanli Sword Sect for the two of Wukong Jew palace. De Hua swallowed, hiding her inner panic. Seeing De Hua staring at him, Su Ren pointed to the two empty seats and asked, "Are they still coming?" De Hua: I don't know either. People who are ruthless and cruel always behave irregularly. Su Ren was a little disappointed when he heard this. If he couldn't wait for the two people from Wukong Jew Palace, there was no point in sitting here. Seeing Su Ren's disappointed expression, De Hua's heart skipped a beat. Then his heart beat rapidly. She is now praying that Ningfei will not be so strong, otherwise what these two people said will not be a joke. Just when the Nanli Sword Sect sword discussion conference was in full swing. 800 miles away from Jianzhou in the south, a group of people were laying something on the ground in an orderly manner. How long will it take for the formation to be completed? An old man in black asked. Return to the elders, we have completed the preparation for this section, it depends on the progress in other places. Ah, very good. This time Nanli Sword Sect has gathered so many big shots. When the time comes, we should cooperate with each other and catch them all at once. Elder, are there some of us in the Nanli Sword Sect? Of course, otherwise why do you think we can so easily set up the heaven-sealing Jedi formation outside Nanli Sword Sect? Elder, who is that spy? The old man in black glared at him. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Yes, I understand my mistake. The main peak of Nanli Sword Sect is on the sword discussion stage. At this time, most of the people have been eliminated. The people who can come to power now are the younger generation leaders of the major forces. Of course, there is also Ningfei, a rather strange and unknown casual cultivator. Now no one dares to ignore Ningfei's existence. This guy cut down several people with one sword strike in a row, and it seemed that he was doing so easily, without any effort at all. The only person with the same performance as him was the Holy Son of Nanli Sword Sect. Judging from the current situation, the final decisive battle may really be between these two people. If Ningfei really wins, everyone who has ridiculed Suren and Ningfei will be slapped in the face. The kind where your face is swollen. Holy Son Kanyu was numb at this time. He could only hope that the Holy Son of Nanli Sword Sect could win the final showdown. The game continues. The Holy Son of Nanli Sword Sect once again defeated his opponent with only 2 moves. Before leaving the stage, he looked at Ningfei in the audience. Now it seems that only this person who does not look like a sword cultivator is qualified to fight with him. Ningfei did not disappoint him, but this time it took 5 swords to knock his opponent out of the sword discussion stage. After several rounds of competition, we finally came to the final showdown. No one expected that Ningfei, a shameful swordsman, would reach the finals. And judging from his appearance, he didn't feel scared at all. My name is Kenshin, what's yours? The Holy Son of Nanli Sword Sect took the lead in introducing himself. He was born with Kenshin, and even his name was Kenshin. Ningfei, you are strong, but in a sword fight, you are no match for me. In a battle, I hope to see you use your true strength instead of using a sword. Hearing this, the whole place was in an uproar. Jian Xian was preparing for Ningfei to use all his strength to fight openly. This final decisive battle is no longer about swords, but about martial arts. It can also be said to be a discussion of Tao, whose Tao is stronger. Jian Xian was also surprised at this time, and he did not expect that his proposal would be rejected by Ningfei. Between heaven and earth, at this moment, the sword intent is everywhere, and the entire sword discussion stage has turned into a sea of sword intent. But if he loses, the supreme sword embryo originally prepared for Kenshin will be handed over to others. In short, Kenshin can never be defeated. To be honest, this made him angry as a sword wielder. Great Elder, isn't the purpose of our cultivation to become stronger? Kenshin seems to be really angry. The Great Elder of Nanli Sword Sect said angrily. Ningfei clearly didn't take him seriously. The sword on his body has been cultivated for decades. Once he pulls it out, it will be earth-shattering. Ningfei flashed the edgeless sword in his hand. Can we start? Ningfei asked impatiently. In that case, let's get started. Although the Great Elder was dissatisfied, he also knew that what Kenshin said was right. Is it a mistake? I asked him to fight in the way he is best at, but he actually gave up. Looking at him, he seems to be ready to draw his sword at any time. The swords in the hands of everyone around seemed to be inspired, and they collectively let out sword sounds. Kenshin, what are you talking about? As soon as Ningfei said this, everyone was in an uproar again. I think this is completely conceited to the extreme. Does he really think Kenshin is the same as other swordsmen? I'm here to discuss swords. Naturally, I have to beat you with a sword to be considered a winner. Oh, by the way, let me explain beforehand. In fact, this is not important, and the most important point is that it is related to the entire layout. If Ningfei is really allowed to use his own way, it will be really hard to tell the outcome. Seeing that both of them were about to start the finals, and the ruthless Zhugong person hadn't come yet, Suren suddenly felt extremely disappointed. The purpose of holding this sword discussion conference is to make Kenshin famous. I allow you to regret it at any time. After Kenshin finished speaking, his whole body became as cold and stern as if a sword was unsheathed. Now, let's watch the battle between these two people. Now I finally meet a peer who can fight with me. If he doesn't use his full strength, I won't be willing to do it. So sorry, we're just sword fighting. How confident is this? You. Oh, forget it, as long as they are still in the southern territory, I will definitely be able to find them. Everyone stared closely at the sword discussion stage, for fear of missing any details. I changed my profession and became a concept god, shocking the world with one knife. Author, How Like the Human World. Chapter 478. Friend Deistning, be careful. The sword heart made the first move, but before he finished speaking, countless sword intents gathered into a sea and rushed towards Ningfiu. Every drop of sea water is a sword intent. Facing the ocean formed by the condensed sword intent, Ningfiu calmly raised the sword in front of him, and then slashed it down. The powerful force knocked back countless sword intentions, and Ningfiu headed forward against the ocean of sword intentions like a boat sailing against the current. Kenshin also didn't retreat when he saw this. After he knew that ordinary sword power could not defeat Ningfiu, he decisively chose to draw his sword. Once the sword that had been cultivated for decades was pulled out, the sky shook and the earth shook, ghosts cried, and gods howled. On the main peak of the Nanli sword sect, there were instantly thunderous winds and dark clouds rolling in. This. The sword cultivated by the sword's heart actually caused strange phenomena in the world. This sword light is enough to scare countless people with its momentum. A powerful man sitting in the second row looked at Kenshin's sword and said with shame, "I'm afraid I won't be able to catch this sword." Not only him, but most of the people present also felt powerless in the face of this sword. Such peerless geniuses are really terrifying. A few decades of practice is enough to crush their hundreds or even thousands of years of practice. Boom! A thunderbolt as thick as a bucket fell, hitting the tip of the sword in Kenshin's hand. At this time, the sword in Jian Xian's hand was shrouded in thunder and turned silver-white. The heart of the sword carried the power of thunder and thrust out at Ningfiu, who was coming to kill him. Boom! There was another loud noise. The barrier around the sword discussion platform actually showed signs of collapse. Who won? Everyone stretched their necks and looked at the sword discussion platform. The smoke and dust dispersed, slowly revealing the sword discussion platform that had collapsed into rubble. Originally, the sword platform was in the center, with the sword heart and Ningfiu standing opposite each other. The mortal sword in Ningfiu's hand cracked and shattered, leaving only half of the hilt still in his hand. The sword in Kenshin's hand was still intact. Does this mean Jiangxin wins? The sword in Ningfiu's hand is completely broken. If Ningfiu keeps his word, Jiangxin will indeed win. At this time, Holy Sun Kanyu, who had been holding back for a long time, jumped up again and taunted. "Haha, I knew Jian Xian wouldn't lose. Boy, didn't you say Ningfiu would win?" Holy Sun Kanyu glanced at Suren provocatively. "Who said Brother Ning lost?" Suren looked at him as if he were a clown. "Huh, the facts are in front of you, you still want to quibble." Holy Sun Kanyu wanted to say more, but he saw Jiangxin's feet softened and a mouthful of blood spit out from his mouth. Kenshin propped himself up on the ground with his sword, barely keeping himself from falling to the ground. "How so?" Holy Sun Kanyu looked at the scene in disbelief. Everyone watching the battle was silent. They never expected such a result. "I lost." After Kenshin said this, he couldn't hold on anymore and fell to the ground. Concession. Ningfiu cupped his hands and threw the remaining half of the sword hilt to the ground. Everyone looked at Ningfiu as if he were a freak. Who is this person? Why has his name never been heard in the heavenly realm? At such an age, his strength is so terrifying. He can't use a sword but defeated Kenshin. If he had used his true strength, Kenshin probably wouldn't have been able to fight him. This kid is really scary. The Peach Blossom girl glanced at Ningfiu on the stage, countless doubts and shock flashed in her eyes. Then she looked at Suren aside, which made her glad that the two ruthless men didn't come. Otherwise, according to the style of these two people, there will really be a violent storm. Ningfiu's performance refreshed her understanding of the two of them. Now she was convinced that the two of them were absolutely ridiculously strong. The people from Nanli Jian Zone hurriedly came to the stage to help Jiangxin down. After checking, fortunately, he was just unconscious and nothing serious. After seeing Jian Xin's defeat, the great elder of Nanli Jian sect had a gloomy face, but he didn't know what he thought of and suddenly became happy again. Hey, the sword embryo belongs to me, right? Ning Feiyu asked loudly at this time. Haha, little friend, if you defeat Jian Xin, the sword embryo will naturally belong to you. Ning Feiyu was delighted when he heard this and immediately said. I don't want the sword embryo anymore. You can exchange it for me with spiritual stones of equal value. Of course, bloodstone is better. Hearing Ning Feiyu's words, the audience thought they heard wrongly. You don't want the supreme sword embryo that is comparable to the immortal treasure, but you want to exchange it for money? Are you participating in this sword competition just to make money? Could you be a little more outrageous? When Dehua heard this, she almost fell under her seat. This guy really wasn't talking nonsense, he was just here for the money. Seeing that the people from Nanli sword sect did not reply, Ning Feiyu said in confusion. If you don't want to, just give me the sword embryo, and I'll find someone else to exchange it for. When people from other sects' holy lands heard this, their eyes suddenly lit up and they all shouted. Give it to me, let's change it for our King Yun sword sect. Don't give it to him, give it to us, and we'll pay twice their price. Everyone started quarreling over the supreme sword embryo. Ning Feiyu was overjoyed when he saw everyone fighting for it. Don't grab it, the one with the highest price will get it. Suren came back to his senses at this time and looked at the two of them with excitement in his eyes. Dehua looked at the two of them nervously and didn't even dare to say anything. The great elder of Nanli sword sect looked at these two streams of light and couldn't help but stand up and said with a smile. After smashing a rock, Ning Feiyu's body stopped. Suren waved his hand and threw Ning Feiyu several hundred meters away. Ling Qingxiu and Mu Hongxia followed the sound and looked over. After seeing Suren's face, they didn't know why, but their hearts were shocked at the same time. Well, I want to see what other people can offer. You two are walking, Your Majesty has come to our Nanli sword section. It is really a blessing for our Nanli sword section. The two ruthless men from the palace have arrived. Qingxiu, senior sister Hongxia. Ning Feiyu was still there preparing to bargain, but when he saw the ruthless Chuigong people coming, he seemed to have thought of something, and he ducked and came to Suren's side. This sudden shout directly attracted the attention of everyone in the venue who did not dare to speak loudly. After so many days and nights, we finally meet again today. Brother Su, please stay calm. Mu Hongxia also said a little strangely. Roll. The great elder of Nanli sword sect looked at Ning Feiyu and said in a deep voice. This scene made everyone open their mouths in shock. With so many people watching, they really want to catch the two ruthless Zhugong walkers, and then they really have to go to the end of the world. This man called them by their names, but they didn't feel angry. If others dared to call them by their names, they would have already taken action. Have we seen him somewhere? Just when Ning Feiyu was about to bargain, two streams of light, one green and one red, flew towards the main peak of Nanli sword sect from the sky. Ning Feiyu, who was so strong just now, was unexpectedly thrown away so far by this person. Brother Su, calm down. Ling Qingxiu asked. Suren suddenly shouted to the two people in Qingqingju Palace. Why does this person look so familiar? So kind. Hearing this, Suren suddenly looked up. Upon seeing this, Ning Feiyu hurriedly grabbed Suren and said. Okay, how many spirit stones do you want? We can pay you. After seeing what the two of them looked like, Suren was suddenly shocked and couldn't recover for a while. Suren walked forward excitedly. Let's talk after we get out of Nanli sword sect. Boom. The great elder of Nanli sword sect led people to greet him, and the other sects also hurriedly stood up and saluted. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I changed my profession and became a concept god, shocking the world with one knife. Author, How Like the Human World. Chapter 479. The Peach Blossom Girl glanced at Ningfiu, who was thrown away, and then at Suren. She thought that Ningfiu's strength exceeded her imagination. Unexpectedly, Suren was stronger. Holy Sun Kanyu shrank back into the crowd at this time, thinking about what kind of pervert he had offended. Ningfiu stood up from the gravel, his face full of shock. In a purely physical competition, even the tyrannical ones among the demon clan are no match for him. Now, he was unexpectedly thrown away such a long distance by Suren. Although he didn't focus on defense just now, not everyone can defeat him so easily. Stop, boy, what do you want to do? The masters of all the sect's holy lands stopped Suren. If the ruthless Zhugong walking was treated lightly in front of them, and they were held accountable afterwards, they would not be able to escape punishment. Let him come over. Ling Qingxiu said something strangely. Although she didn't know the boy in front of her, she always felt a sense of intimacy and trust in the boy in front of her. She felt that the boy in front of her would not hurt her. Fairy, this person's identity is unknown, it's best not to get close to him. Yes, I'm afraid this person has some purpose in approaching you on purpose, so you must be on guard. Everyone spoke to dissuade him. I said, let him come over. Ling Qingxiu's voice became colder. Everyone had no choice but to make way. Suren walked up to Ling Qingxiu and couldn't help but reach out to touch her cheek, but Ling Qingxiu dodged it. Seeing Suren's rude behavior, everyone was about to take action, but was stopped by Ling Qingxiu's look. Seeing Ling Qingxiu ducking away, Suren's heart trembled. Qingxiu, you don't recognize me? I'm Suren. Suren? I'm sorry, I don't know you. Ling Qingxiu shook her head. How is that possible? We grew up together. You have been my woman for a long time. How come you don't know me? Ling Qingxiu frowned when she heard this. Faced with such frivolous words, she wanted to teach the boy a lesson, but her own hands refused to obey her. It seems that there is a thought in my heart that keeps telling myself that you can't hit him. I'm sorry, you may have mistaken the wrong person. Upon hearing this, Suren froze in place as if struck by lightning. Ling Qingxiu really didn't remember him and had completely forgotten about him. Listening to the conversation between the two, everyone around them was too surprised to say a word. Walking in the world of ruthless Zhu Palace, he actually had such a relationship with someone? Only a few people know that those who can walk in the world as the Wuking Zhu Palace are all the mortal bodies of Luo Yuxian, the master of Wuking Zhu Palace. This is the reason why all forces must be respectful when they encounter the ruthless palace in the world. Facing them is actually facing the merciless palace master. Who in the world dares to be disrespectful? So if these two people are really related, then it will be a big problem. If this spreads out, the entire heaven will be shaken. After Ningfiu came back, he couldn't help but cursed when he saw this scene. Fuck. He originally thought that Suren just wanted to enter Qingqingzhu Palace to find his beloved. Little did he know that the person Suren was looking for turned out to be Luo Yuxian's human body. When word spreads about this, his accomplice, even with his status, will lose a layer of his skin. The Peach Blossom Girl was completely dumbfounded at this time, and kept muttering that it was over, it was over. Beihualu cannot offend Wu Wu Zhugong, and no sect here can offend Wu Qing Zhugong. At this time, Suren's small world. Seeing Suren standing there in a daze, Jingling couldn't help but remind him. Suren, if you bring them two in, it's not that they have forgotten you, but their memories were intercepted by Luo Yuxian. Suren came back to his senses after hearing this and asked. What's the meaning? Humph, you still call me stupid? Luo Yuxian must have fused them once after Blue Star captured them. After finding that it was not suitable, he put them in the heaven realm to train again. From what I know, Luo Yuxian must have used the supreme forgetting heavenly art to amputate their previous memories. But that is also her memory. If there are no particularly unforgettable memories between you and Ling Qingxiu, it won't be long before Luo Yuxian can completely destroy that memory. A particularly unforgettable memory, what counts as a particularly unforgettable memory? Jingling thought for a moment, then smiled and said. The so-called Supreme Being forgets love, the key point is love. Have you ever done anything embarrassing between you? If there was anything embarrassing, Luo Yuxian won't be able to completely erase that memory until it takes hundreds of years. And it might become her inner demon. After hearing this, Su Ren finally understood why Ling Qingxiu took the initiative to find him that night. Now it seems that Ling Qingxiu may have had a premonition that she would be taken away. What happened that night is the only key to Su Ren regaining her memory. Then what should I do now? What can we do? Of course we should capture the two of them into the small world first. After finally finding them, we can't let them go back to Luo Yuxian. Su Ren nodded, and his consciousness exited the small world. Qingxiu, senior sister Hengxia, I will wrong you for a while. Before the two of them understood what happened, the next second they were already in Su Ren's little world. Huh? Where are you two walking? Everyone was shocked and looked around hurriedly. Where are the two figures of Ling Qingxiu? Boy, did you do this? What? Wea, well done. Then it transformed into a man wearing a black robe and stood above the clouds. Its powerful power made everyone restless. Nanli Sword Sect, what are you doing? Sealing the heaven and Jedi's formation. Ha ha ha, who said I am from Nanli Sword Sect? I am the great elder of the 10,000 Souls Sect. Everyone looked at the great elder of Nanli Sword Sect. Why is Duan Wei a member of the Wanhun Sect? I feel like my Qi is sealed. Just when everyone was still shocked by Duan Wei's identity, a cold and deep voice sounded from the horizon. Ning Feiyu's face turned pale when he saw this. This was much crazier than what he had done. Duan Wei, what do you mean? What do your Nanli Sword Sect want to do? What? Hurry up and hand them over. After Luo Yuxian's mortal body was captured, the heaven would really be shaken. Someone exclaimed. Ha 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 ha, everyone, you found it too late. The 10,000 Souls Sect? Hasn't the 10,000 Souls Sect been destroyed? Nanli Sword Sect. At this time, countless shouts of killing rang out. In the sky, above the black clouds, layers of monks stood in the clouds holding weapons like heavenly soldiers and generals, looking at the people below with cold eyes. What happened? A huge green skull flew from the sky, and the skull swallowed a black cloud in one mouthful. Everyone looked up at the sky, wondering what had happened. Hey, why do I feel that the spiritual power in my body has become extremely slow? The great elder of Nanli Sword Sect flew into the air and laughed loudly. One of the formation members frowned and said. The entire Nanli Sword Sect immediately went dark. Duan Wei, what are you doing? As Duan Wei spoke, endless black mist rolled in and instantly enveloped the Nanli Sword Sect. Just as everyone was about to force Su Ren to hand over the two walking men, suddenly a strong wind blew and black clouds rolled in. You have now entered the heaven-sealing Jedi formation set up by our sect. No, we seem to be surrounded by a large formation. Everyone immediately felt bad about that formation. I changed my profession and became a concept god, shocking the world with one knife. Author, How Like the Human World. Chapter 480. Master of the 10,000 Souls Sect. He is not dead. I saw with my own eyes that he was beaten to death. How is this possible? A holy landlord looked at the black-robed man in disbelief. Haha, I just pretended to die back then. Do you really think I am so easy to kill? Today, I will use your souls to complete my 10,000 souls banner. The leader of the 10,000 soul sect held his right hand, and a black soul flag appeared in his hand. As soon as the soul flag came out, the world immediately became more gloomy. In the sky, there seemed to be the sound of ghosts crying and gods howling. Seeing the 10,000 souls flag, everyone's faces suddenly turned pale. Zion Bayo 10,000 souls banner. It's over, our lives will be lost under this flag. Ha ha ha, if you want to die, it's not that easy. You will all become one of the ghosts in my 10,000 soul banner. The leader of the 10,000 soul sect looked at Duan Wia. Wia, where is the head soul? The head soul is the most important ghost in the 10,000 souls banner. The stronger the head soul is, the stronger the 10,000 souls banner will be. Back to the sect leader, originally I wanted the holy son of Nanli sword sect to be the head soul. He is born with a sword heart. As long as he enters the banner, he will definitely bring the level of the ghosts to a new level. But through this sword competition, I found a better candidate than him. It's those two people. Duan Wei pointed at Ningfei and Suren and said. At this time, Suren's consciousness was explaining to Ling Qingxiu in the small world, without even looking at what was happening outside. Ningfei couldn't help but let out a cry when he saw Duan Wei pointing at him. You want to catch me as your head soul? It's a dream. Ningfei glanced around, and it seemed that the entire Nanli sword sect had been surrounded by people from the Wanhun sect. However, he did not show any timidity, but instead comforted Dehua, who was a little scared at the side. Peach Blossom girl, don't be afraid, I will take you out later. Master Ning, do you have a way to get out? Dehua said in surprise. But then he frowned again. But we are in the great formation of sealing heaven and earth. There is no way to go from heaven to earth, and there are still immortal treasures and 10,000 soul flags. How can we get out? Ningfei laughed when he heard this. The immortal treasure is nothing. Don't worry, I'll give them a try first. If we can't beat them, we'll leave. All you need to know is that I have something that can help us escape from here easily. At this time, the crowd became somewhat commotion. Everyone, we are so many in the 9 realms, what are we afraid of the 2 of them doing? We fought them. So what about the immortal treasure? We are stronger. However, the sealing heaven Jedi formation limits our strength. Can we win? Are you afraid that you can win? Do you expect them to let us go? Even if I die, I will not go to the 10,000 souls banner to be tortured. Upon seeing this, the leader of the 10,000 soul sect sneered. Ha ha ha, interesting, let me show you the strength of my 10,000 soul banners. Woo! Wow! Roar! One after another, the ghosts flew out of the 10,000 souls flag with their teeth and claws. They dragged their green bodies and rushed towards the people below. Ah! Help me! A disciple of the Nanli sword sect was bitten by the ghost on the neck and flew into the air. In just a moment, the disciple's body fell from the air. When he looked again, his soul had been absorbed into the 10,000 souls banner. The next moment, as if it had been transformed, the disciple's soul turned into a ghost and rushed toward everyone. For a time, all the ghosts on Nanli Jianzone mountain flew together. It was like hell. Duan Wia, you must die a happy death. An elder of Nanli sword sect fell to the ground, slumped and looked unwillingly at the former great elder of Nanli sword sect in the air. Now everyone knows that the leader of Nanli sword sect has most likely been killed or trapped. Duan Wei relied on his identity as the Great Elder to secretly destroy the sect-protecting formation and ask the people of the 10,000 Soul sect to set up the heaven-sealing and Jedi-destroying formation around them. All of this was planned by him. Today's sword discussion conference is just a means for the Wanhun sect to catch everyone in one fell swoop. Even if the ghosts in the 10,000 Souls banner are killed, they will be resurrected from the 10,000 Souls banner the next moment. And as everyone fell one by one, the number of ghosts also increased. No, Sooner or later our spiritual energy will be consumed by the ghosts. With the sealing heaven Jedi formation here, we can't afford to hold it back if we use a little spiritual energy. What should we do? A sect leader asked as he slashed away a ghost with one sword. Let's fight together and force the 10,000 soul banner away. Many powerful holy masters nodded in unison and joined forces to kill in the air. The leader of the 10,000 soul sect looked at these people coming to kill him and sneered. Haha, that's a good idea, but it's a pity that you don't have the strength. The leader of the 10,000 soul sect grabbed the 10,000 souls banner and shook it with all his strength, and an endless black storm blew out from the 10,000 souls banner. Everyone who had just rushed forward and had not yet regained their footing was immediately knocked off their feet. Moreover, there are countless evil winds inside the black storm. When the evil wind enters the body, everyone's little spiritual energy is immediately used to fight against these evil winds entering the body. The entire battle situation was completely plunged into despair because of a 10,000 soul flag. The power of the immortal treasure cannot be underestimated. The moment everyone suppressed and turned back, Ningfiu moved. Just as the leader of the 10,000 soul sect was about to raise his flag, Ningfiu had already stepped forward to stand in front of him. Boom! Ningfiu punched out, and the whole world changed color instantly. All the ghosts floating around were annihilated. This is born with a divine body. You are the 10,000 Deo Immortal Palace. The leader of the 10,000 soul sect was shocked. He had no time to retract the 1,000 souls banner for defense, and he hurriedly struck out with a palm. Punch and palm collided together. Boom! The thick black clouds directly opened a huge gap in the sky, and the sunlight passed through the gap and shone on the main peak of Nanli Sword Sect. After countless ghosts came into contact with the sun, their bodies sizzled and smoke erupted, as if they were being fried. The ghosts screamed and quickly returned to the 10,000 souls banner to hide. They could not see the sunlight. After one punch, Ningfiu flew backwards and fell to the ground. Master Ning, how are you? Peach Blossom Girl ran over and asked. Ningfiu looked at the sky and shook his head. No, I can't kill him alone. We have to go. Go and call Brother Su, let's go. Although Suren had just thrown him onto the rock, he knew that Suren was in a wrong state just now and it was probably just an unintentional move. He really treats Suren as a friend. So now that he was running away, he didn't forget about Suren. In Suren's little world, the two girls reluctantly calmed down after Suren explained for a long time. Ling Qingxiu said softly. There seems to be a fight outside. Why don't you leave Nanli Sword Sect first? Suren locked them in a small world, and at first they reacted violently and wanted to rush out. Later, Suren talked about the experience between the two little by little, which made her slowly calm down. Maybe it was the voice in her heart that made her believe in the boy in front of her. Or maybe she felt that Suren didn't lie to them and everything he said was true. In any case, they did not choose to take action. They wanted to wait for Suren to prove to them that everything he said was not fabricated. Ningfiu and the others had just arrived in front of Suren, when they happened to encounter Suren's consciousness retreating from the small world. Brother Su, let's go. Suren shook his head. No, I can kill them. Before Suren could take action, he saw a sword light reaching the sky, piercing the black fog and falling down. Wanhun Sect, I finally caught you. Hearing this voice, Ningfiu suddenly looked up and murmured. Master of Tongtian Sword Mountain.